So this table I probably bought 10 years ago. I lived in another house, small dining room, and it was going to be way too big, but I loved it. I wanted it so much. So I found it at a thrift store, and I went for probably 2 years, and I would ask every time, and they said, no, we can't sell it, it's display. And I found out one day that the thrift store was going to move into a smaller place. So I kind of used that to my advantage, and I said, you know, that's probably not going to fit. Would y'all sell it to me? And so finally the manager said, yeah, but you know, I'm gonna have to have $125 for that table. So, you know, after I fainted and got up off the floor, I took the table home and repainted it, and I've moved it to 3 houses now. So it probably will go to my grave. I don't know, there's something about it. I love it that we can see 8 people here.
It's big.
We can squeeze 10 if we need to, and finally I have a place that it fits. So this was probably one of my favorite deals.
Clearly you go thrifting a lot.
Regularly. And that's part of one of the things that I put in the blog post the other day about thrifting, is that people will message and say, well, you find the best stuff, I don't find anything. You have to be consistent, you have to go often.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you don't go often, you're not going to find the good stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a point for people to understand. You go all the time.
Yeah.
So how often do you think you go?
Well, it's hard. That's hard to say because, like, I don't even go every week, and I don't always hit the same one. But if I'm out driving around and I see a Goodwill, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
And I run in. So you know, and when I travel, I have the estate sale app on my phone. So like when I go out of town, if I have downtime, I use that app because it finds where you are, and it gives you the mileage order. And so when I go to Houston and McKenzie's, that's what we do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I can't say, oh, I go once a week, but I could say that I go often, like when we travel, that we'll do that like all day one day.
Yeah.
And I make sure I hit different ones. If I'm in Dallas,
Yeah.
I'll be, oh, I haven't been to that one. And then you know, is this a good one to go back to? Or that sort of thing. So these barn doors, we knew we wanted barn doors here to divide the living space from the kitchen area. And I looked and looked, and I found some. I thought about having some made, and before I did all that, I found these in round top and just absolutely fell in love with them. So I bought them, and I had to wait several months until they had a big, like, 18-wheeler truck to come because they're each door is 6 feet wide and 10 feet tall, and they weigh like a bazillion pounds. And although I wouldn't say it was a thrifted find, they were a really, really, really great price for what they are and to fill this space. They came from an old carriage house, like a horse and buggy carriage house in Iowa. So I thought it was so cool that the guy knew the story. So anyway, we designed this wall and that opening around these. The idea was that we could close this off and have a space for the guys in here to watch TV and the girls in there. We never closed these doors, but I'm glad that I didn't realize that then, because I might not have done it and made the investment. And it is definitely the focal point probably in my whole house.
Yeah.
Even though we don't. We can close them, but we just don't. So this is definitely one of my favorite features.
Railing separate? Did you have to get that made?
It was separate. He didn't have the railing, and so I had those made at a place in Dallas. And because we bought the doors before the house was built, we were able to put a second beam in the wall for them to anchor to, because I just don't think there's any way that these massive doors would have hung in a regular stud. So we had a support beam built in the wall to hold these.
Wow. That's so smart when you're building a house to know these things first.
Right.
Well, yeah, because it adds character to a new build that you would not be able to. I mean, you could do with decor, but I mean, that adds another layer.
And it definitely is a focal point since it's right in the front door. So.
Oh, yeah.
Those corbels were from a resale shop, and I bought the pair of those for $45, so that was a deal. And then we had the mantle, kind of just basically a box made out of wood that's left over from the ceiling. I'll show you in the bedroom. So that was kind of a fun, one of my favorite things, and that total probably wasn't $100.
So fun.
Yeah. Is this
is a round top and another thing that I bought to fit this wall. I wanted a piece that would fill most of this space, because I knew if I do a smaller piece, now you've got wasted space, and I'm gonna, you know, what are you gonna do with that? So I love that this piece pretty much filled this wall, and it gave me tons of space for storage.
Yeah.
She was downtown Garland for a while, where Wild Grace is now. And when Emily had the store, we were building the house, that was standing out in the rain behind her store.
Wow.
And I saw it, and I couldn't decide because I was trying to decide about doors for the house, and I kept thinking, I don't know, do I want an arch door? It was in good shape, the bones were in good shape, but the paint was literally peeling off in layers, and I couldn't decide. And for several weeks, every time I'd go back to her store, it was still standing there, and I kept thinking it would just work on me. So I finally went back, and she made me a deal on it. And my one regret is I spent so much time, and I stripped the door down to the bare wood, but then I had them painted. And I really wish I had left the natural color, because it looked like that really cool bleached European pine.
Yeah.
And I'm really sad that because it lost a lot of the patina and the character. I left that's the black enamel doorknob and the original plate that was on it. But I wish I had left, I wish I'd left the natural wood of the door. But I do love it, and I'm glad that I went with the arch door.
Do you recover, like, are these all new, or?
Well, this is an IKEA along with that one. And I love them because they're slip covered.
Yeah.
And so I love that I can pull it off and wash it. And when I first bought the white, my husband was like, well, you can't really have a white sofa. And I'm like, yeah, because you can bleach it. And the other ones you really can't bleach. So it's great because I just pull it off, throw it in the wash. And this was actually my great grandmother's. And it was that awful green, shiny fabric. So I had this recovered years ago. And that I bought at a vintage shop recently, and it was recovered in a drop cloth, painter's drop cloth.
And then you had those made. Look at
I
that.
did, and this kind of was a find. This was a Facebook Marketplace find. I wanted the Parsons chair slip covered look bar stools here, and I couldn't find anything I liked. So I had seen the ones at IKEA, and I thought about buying them, but I saw on Facebook Marketplace this guy was moving out of state, didn't want to move his. He didn't want to move these things. And so he was selling the 2 IKEA chairs. So I went and got them, and they are just a plain fabric, and these were actually black legs. So I had the lady that sews for me make the washable linen slip covers, and then I painted the legs white. So these were $20 for the pair.
Oh,
and then I had
wow.
the slip cover made. So you can find things on the Facebook Marketplace, estate sales, thrift stores. Just be a little bit creative. Again, I didn't want black legs. Took me 30 minutes to paint them white and then have the slip covers made.
Okay.
If I see it and I love it, I try to think of, will this fit? What are other ways I'm going to use it? And so I think because when we were building this house, I wanted it to have a lot of character and a lot of architectural detail. And so I think my mind was open to that.
Yeah.
And when I saw this in an antique store in South Texas, I knew I needed a sink in the house, and I'd already been trying to think of some different ways to do sinks. Like in the bathrooms, they're all, for the most part, they're in a piece of furniture, and I did a vessel sink. So my mind was already thinking about how and where can I use different things. And so when I saw this, it's a European animal feeding trough. I just thought that would be perfect.
Yeah.
It's large. It'd be great in my laundry room. So I think just thinking about different ways that you can use things, and if you find pieces you love, you usually will find a way to
make it
use
work.
them and
Yeah.
make it work.
Yeah. Where'd y'all treasure hunt those?
I need to know what thrift store you're going to.
Yeah.
And this was coming out of a tear down in a nice area in Dallas, and they were selling this for $100. So I thought that was such a steal. I think we may have even already moved in the house, but I needed some kind of cool mantle to frame it out. So I think it just really made the space. And this was a Facebook Marketplace. This was an IKEA chair, which I think I mentioned inside. I have the sectional and the love seat. I love them because they're slip covered. This is obviously outdoors, and even though it's protected from rain, it gets really dusty and dirty. So occasionally I can pull this off, I can wash it, dry it, put it back on. So I love to mix things like that. Obviously very antique and vintage. This is newer, but it functions out here. And again, I think what helps me mix a lot of styles is that I stay with the neutral, and so it all just flows together since I don't have a lot of color and a lot of things going on.